seagulls follow the trawl, it's because they think sardines will be thrown into the sea. Thank you.
Nobody cares, mate.
Nobody cares, mate. Nobody fucking cares, mate, honestly.
And the guy's talking absolute nonsense. I've never heard so much rubbish in my life.
Normal men.
What do you mean, normal men?
We're just innocent men.
I'm telling you, don't back down, double down. Don't back down, double down.
Here we go. It's the Sunday Sesh. Oh, don't you just love it? Celtic are still top of the table. Celtic are through in the Scottish Cup. It's St Mirren at home. Juranovic is away. Life is good. We are going to be exploring, though, not just current affairs, but a wee bit broader chat today on the Sunday Sesh, because I'm joined by three gentlemen who know how to sesh on a Sunday. Liam, the punk duck warlord. How the devil are you, mate? And what time is it in Canada?
It's coming up to about 11 o'clock in the morning, so
you're doing the Sunday Blether.
Maybe a nice wee red to start the day. Yes, 11 o'clock. Well, it's a fresh day.
So you're doing
it with the Blether.
You're doing the Sunday Blether time, though, effectively. That's when that kicked off over here, is 11 a.m. So this is effectively you doing the Sunday Blether. I've never seen anyone drink wine on that yet, but you crack on, because that is proper hardcore, and that's what we want from the resident rock star. Steve O'Matt joins us again. Sunday sessions, mate, they're turning into a thing, aren't they, mate?
It's the way to go, mate. It's the best day of the week, isn't it? Laid back, casual. Can't beat it.
Oh, I don't work Mondays. It's written into my contract at my work that there is no point in me working Mondays, because there's no point in paying someone who's not there. You know what I mean? So I get Mondays.
What everybody wants to know, mate, how many cans have you got beside you?
I've got three. I've had one dragon soup. I've got two more. What Patrol said in the comments, get the vodka poured in the dragon soup. That is vodka with lemonade and Robinson's juice, and that's the dragon soup. So I need to know if Paw Patrol's in my house somewhere, because that is very scary. And introducing, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, from a land far, far away, Richie. What's happening, mate? Welcome aboard the bus.
How you doing, guys? Thanks for letting me come on here. Been looking forward to coming on.
Well,
I don't make a rip-roaring shot front of myself, but
I hear you're good
pals. Try, right?
You good pals with the rock star, the resident rock star.
Aye. We've known each other for 20 years now.
Wow. Aye.
You know, so aye, we've got a few stories we can share.
I can imagine, well, you know, times and places for those stories, do you know what I mean? Choose them carefully, you know?
Aye, after 9 o'clock, after the watershed for a few.
I don't know what the YouTube police fucking chasing us again, you know what I mean? Anyway, Right, okay, we will talk about current affairs first and foremost, because there's a couple of wee things to cover, and then I think we're going to have a wee broader discussion. It's laid back. Not that I'm ever laid back, like I'm fucking ass. But in general, we'll talk things broader, Celtic. We had a wee debate about it in the WhatsApp group chat, and then we've got a new segment we're adding to the bus, ladies and gents, and I want massive input for the viewers here. We'll do half an hour at the end, and we're going to call it the Celtic Clinic, not Cynic, Clinic. Right, and it's where you confess something that you don't actually like about Celtic or a player you thought was overrated. Just a confession. It is a safe place. No one's going to judge. It is your half an hour to just get it out there off your chest, no matter what it is. And we'll do that for the last half hour. I think that'll be fun. And we'll look for as much interaction as possible. Before we get started as well, all that good stuff, hit like. It gets loads of traction on YouTube and that. Do, if you want, if you've not already, hit subscribe, because all the content's free and all that carry on. If you want, though, to become a Boys to Bus member like James Grimes, like Paul Dyatt, like Brown Warrior, like Hale Times 2, there's loads. Patrick McLaughlin, look, they're everywhere. Gary Brown, members everywhere. So if you want to do that, it does keep the bus on the road and the wheels turning. Let's get to it. Liam, I'll come to you first, big man. Celtic draw St Mirren in the Cup. We don't need to go over the game again. I think that's been exhausted already. It was comfortable. But St Mirren in the Cup, I think it's a comfy draw, and it's one we would have took.
Easy. No fear as well. I mean, they had their one go against us. You know, they got lucky once. They'll never get lucky twice. They caught us our worst possible time, right? Well, I think we just had a bad day, a bad game against them. Wrong tactics, wrong strips. That's not going to happen again ever. So, nice and easy. I'm not worried about that at all. I'll be another 4-0, 5-0.
Aye, do you know what? See, that's the early stage. You just take whoever comes out.
I'm going to go round the houses quickly on it so we can get to the road, Liam. Steve, are happy with the draw?
Aye, as I say, listen, see these early stages of the Cup. It's potluck whoever come out with, right? So, home draw, that'll take you. I mean, you do that all day long. St Mirren, as Liam says, nothing really to fear there, aren't you? You'd be a bit more pissed off if you got some of the bigger fish, but there you go, we'll take it.
Richie, St Mirren at home, easy days.
Aye, should be standard. You know, I can't see us slipping up again. I don't see us ever doing a Clyde under Ange. You know, I don't see any of these mad headlines, the Super Cali go ballistic pish.
I know. How would you fit St Mirren into that, eh? Fucking minging it. St Mirren, I don't fucking. That's terrible.
Terrible, man.
I think if anybody beats us, it's going to be seen as a tragedy for the newspapers. They're just waiting for a slip, but it's not coming.
Aye,
you can wait.
I think it's in Midden and Mirren. That would work. You could get a headline out of that. But anyway, I think it's a comfy draw as well. Who cares? Nobody cares, mate. We'll win that. Right, okay. Juranovic has officially left the building. Union Berlin. With a wee love poem on Twitter. Liam, I'm not having that bullshit, mate. Not for me. And I think a Celtic fan quipped below it, they're not going to shag you, mate.
Union Berlin get back in, went, it's worth a try.
So at least it was worth a try. And I thought Union Berlin maybe kind of saved themselves.
I thought they said.
I think they want to be St. Pauli. You know, that's what it is. They want that connection with us at St. Pauli where they'll be our second team. No, we've got a second team. Our team's St. Pauli. Sling your hook. Sling your hook. Come.
By the way,
just make sure the check doesn't bounce. That's all right.
Liam, let's talk about the check. £7.5 million. Add-ons would take it up to 10 if whatever those clauses are met. Happy with that?
Aye. Bit underwhelmed. Don't know why that's that when you look at players that are still trading for good money and all that. Okay, I mean, but you know, this 28 is a new 50. I don't know where this has came from all of a sudden. Nobody can take a gamble on a 28-year-old.
So true.
Have I frozen?
Yeah,
no.
But no, you're fine. You can still hear you fine though.
Okay, right. Okay. So that's it. I think it's okay money, but I thought we would have got better. I thought we would have got at least 15 plus. I thought that's probably the valuation for what other clubs would pay for somebody like that, especially in England. I mean, watch it start going daft now that we've sold them. You know, be interesting to just see who goes for what now. if that's setting a new trend or something. But
Steve,
yeah.
do you think with the
cheerio, you know, I'm happy with who we got now.
Oh, me too. Steve, do you think with the FIFA Juranovic as well? I've been quite vocal about the fact I think he was never going to get what was sort of put out there anyway. But do you also think as well a case where Celtic almost let it be known too much that he was available for transfer? Perhaps even when you see Celtic signing a third right back, I mean, it doesn't take Einstein to work out. Okay, they're selling one of them, and I don't think it was going to be Tony Ralston. With all due respect to him, you could tell who it was going to be. Therefore, again, I mean, I like the fact Celtic were ahead of schedule, right? Let me get that clear to you, Steve. I think it was a good thing that Johnson was in the door first. But playing devil's advocate, that maybe factored a part of the reason why the fee was a bit less, because if you're the buyer, you're going, listen, I know you bid $2.5 million and 3 ginger bottles for players, right? Well, trust me, you ain't going to be paying the wages of 3 right backs.
Yeah.
So he's up for sale. So that does lower it a wee bit. I think that I would factor that in, but on the whole, I think it's okay. I don't think it's the worst deal in the world.
No, I think there's an element of truth in what you said there. I don't necessarily think that we particularly touted him and made it, you know, blatantly overt that he was up for sale. Bringing in Johnson and whatnot, if you think it, that only really picked up round about whenever the speculation started and it looked more closer to it that he actually was going to leave.
Yeah.
So I think if you look at Ralston, for as good as he is, you would have always argued the toss that, you know, we like the idea of 2 for each position, but realistically, because of how his run of form was a recent thing, that it could be a flash in the pan, so it would have been made sense to have somebody in anyway. But in terms of the fee, I think the fee is roughly, you know, where it makes sense for where he's at and the team he's going to. When it first came about, I always say 10 to 15 max, and I always say 10 with add-ons potentially 15. That was based on an assumption that it was going to be a more blue chip club, the likes of Atletico Madrid or an English Premier League team. If you look at teams in Germany and that, they don't largely spend big, particularly these sort of peripheral teams. I know that the Berlin teams they've got some money behind them, but they don't spend big money. So if you're talking between 7 to 10 for that club, that's very relevant to where they're at. Similarly with Monza, that's why that was so long. But if the conversation was an English Premier League team where it was a Southampton or above, then you can push for that higher mark. So I think the price is roughly top end for the league and the team that he's going to.
See, just on top of that as well, by the way, I don't know if you've seen it, I think it was Italian TV, like the official with the wee blue tick on Twitter. Italian TV were saying, like, are you watching UEFA? And it was the English Premier League in January spent 444 million or something like that. And all the other leagues, the highest I think was La Liga at 29 million net for all the clubs. Do you know what I mean? The other like Ligue 1 in France, 19 million. Germany, 15 million. I'm making these up, by the way, but it was roughly all that.
No, I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
Aye, and it was like, fucking wow. But that tells you as well, maybe the money isn't in circulation as much unless it is to one of these daft English teams. Do you know what I mean? And if they're not biting, then you've got to go with what the European value is. And I think when you look at those net spends from the league, Steve-O, I think 7.5 million makes up a fair percentage of what the Bundesliga has spent.
It does, and you know, talking about add-ons and stuff, what I would probably suggest is, you know, you and I don't know, we're just making assumptions, we're just talking shit on a Sunday, right? But you would like to think that with a player like Juranovic in the league that he's going to, in the team and the sort of trajectory they're currently on, you would like to think that whatever those incentives are, that they're achievable. There'll probably always be one random one that is unlikely, like if we win a cup or something like that. But even so, it might be something like if we qualify for the Champions League or if we make the Europa League or something like that. You know, I think if it's play-based incentives, he's going to get his game, put it that way. And I think there is a chance for these incentives to come in. Whereas if you look at some other players that we've seen go for Scotland elsewhere, and I'll use Patterson as the key example, I don't think his add-ons are ever going to be achievable at this moment in time. I might be wrong, but there's a difference. Do you see what I'm saying? One's a established player going to an established team, and the other's a guy who's starting afresh.
I think that's a good point. Talking about Juranovic, Richie, here's my take on it. If you want my cynical take on it, I think a one-season wonder joins a one-season wonder club. I think they're a marriage made in heaven, mate. I'm happy with the deal. I think it's good money. I think his valuation this time next summer, even with still at that point 2 years left in his deal, I think would have plummeted. I don't think he would do it. I think the form he was in first half of the season for us, albeit the World Cup, yes, that purple patch can inflate it, but I think that would be a long distant memory come this time next summer. And I think if his form had carried on the trajectory it was, which was down the way, by the way, I think you would have been looking at £4 or £5 million and, you know, jumping up and doing Kyle Lafferty star jumps, really. So to be honest with you, I think we've sold at the right time for a player whose head was turned. I think Celtic probably thought they were going to get more, and I think the final say has been on Ange. I think Ange just went, look, we've got the cover there now. Just there's no point in having him unhappy. Do you not think we could get more, Ange? Shut up. You've only just given me £3 million for a striker. Now you're quibbling about £7.5 million for a right back. Take it. I'll deal with it. Give me the money. And I think it's a good deal.
I think it's a great deal. I'm always a bit suspicious about players that come into your club and take our supposed special numbers, the 88s, the 67s. You know, when Yana was the kind of same and make a name and go. And I feel Juranovic was the same. He was never sticking around for long. I thought we could have, probably should have, and the market got a bit more. But I'm not really sorry to see him go. I would like to be. I would like to remember him for like the Panenka. Was it against Lazio? It was in Europe. I'm terrible with my memory. But I remember him for Ibrox. And that performance was shocking.
Twice.
Yeah, and it was inexcusable for somebody who's come off the back of a wonderful World Cup. That was an inexcusable performance, and that kind of sours it for me. I mean, I'll still have fond memories of him, but I'm a bit if you burn me, I remember it.
Do you remember, Richie, the Ibrox display last season, which was actually more meaningful because we didn't have a 9-point cushion then? It was, it was sort of.
I remember him being very, very shaky. I genuinely thought that one was worse, the one just there, because it affected the entire back line. I don't think Starfelt would have committed that challenge if he felt. Well, I felt he was rattled. Like, you know what? You're probably right, but I felt he was rattled with Juranovic on his outside. As soon as Juranovic came on, there was whether it was Taylor went off or Juranovic come off, it changed the entire game. But I just remember Juranovic for that now, and I'm not sad to see him go. I think he'll fade into obscurity.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. For me, I just think that the Ibrox displays he's put in twice. I mean, the one I'm talking about where Rogic and Cameron Carter-Vickers scored, that game, that week title was on a knife edge at that point.
That's true,
and for this guy being this world class,
and he was definitely at fault for the Rangers goal. He was pointing at somebody to be in some space or other.
It wasn't just opening goal though. He couldn't pass 5 yards. He was just away every time the ball came. So I thought, he shot the bed here on the big occasion.
Yeah, I think he had more bad games for Celtic than truly outstanding ones. I mean, the level we've seen him at the World Cup, I don't think we've seen him that level in a Celtic shirt.
The 3-0 win, right? The 3-0 win against Rangers, because it had been so long since we'd cuffed them, there was something extra sweet about it, Liam, right? There was something about that you went, fucking hell, I've not had this feeling in a while, even though it hadn't been that long. But, not as long as they'd went, do you know what I mean? But, hey-ho, when that victory occurred, every player's match rating elevated by 2 or 3, do you know what I mean? A 6 out of 10 was a 9 out of 10, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And Juranovic was a big beneficiary of that. And he laughed at Kim. And for whatever reason, that gets you loads of brownie points, do you know what I mean? Not lunch points, brownie points, right? And that seemed to really appeal to people. And he's kind of lived off that display. If you think of his Celtic performances, Liam, I think Richie's right. I remember more performances where he's not been at the level I thought he's apparently at than what he's, I can't think off the top of my head of many games I thought, fucking, whoa, Big Joseph today, 10 out of 10. I think there was a bit of a myth involved.
I think we created that myth. We created that myth by fireball. We did that with a lot of players. We see things that they like. We see an action that they take that's like, oh, as a fan, that's the way I'd react. I'd do that. I'd want to do the Bruni. I'd want to do that. And we idolise those small moments, and those become part of the cult around the player and not necessarily how the player plays. You know, and I agree with everybody here. Like, aye, he flattered to deceive. When I saw his highlight reel when he was coming for Liga Warsaw, the two things that I like is like, oh, he looked like he could put a cross into the box, and he looked like he could fire for range. I didn't see any of that when he played for Celtic. I seen him, he was good at hitting the ball, and he was good at maybe a 30 yard run at really fast pace. But then he'd stop and he'd look for somebody. He wasn't releasing it at the same pace. So I think Ange got utility from him. If you look at him as a utility player, he helped his transition to something now where a process now where I think Ralston or Johnson are far more suited. So yeah, cheerio.
No, absolutely. Just to echo a wee bit of what you're saying there, I think as football fans, particularly Celtic fans, we are very loyal and back our players, and you know yourself, if you have any level of criticism or a sideways word to say about somebody, folk jump all over you. And I think to an extent, as you say, Juranovic, if you look at the sample his time with us, yes, there was some good performances and there were some high level performances, but it was interspersed with some shockers and some just really bang average ones. And I think sometimes as well, all these things that Liam's saying, like the fireball and the wee videos and trying to big somebody up, it's like Rangers with the Ryan Kent thing. They still eat off the fact that he threw a punch at Scott Brown. And that defines who he is, even if he's red raw. And that harms to an extent with Juranovic. There's no doubt he is a good player. Is he a great player? No, because he probably wouldn't have been at Celtic in the first place if he was a great player. And he probably wouldn't have been in the equivalent of football backwater in Poland for as long as he was before coming to Celtic. He came to us, got an opportunity, and there's no doubt in my mind he enjoyed being there at the bigger team with the bigger stadium, the bigger occasion. But he saw that as a springboard to move on, and maybe to an extent slightly bought into his own hype. And that's reflected in some of the performances. I says they weren't all bad. And it was a good player, but he wasn't a great player, and I think some folk built him up.
I agree with I completely agree with that. And just to touch on what you're saying there, Steve-O, Richie, there was a moment where really the penny dropped for me. I'd already had my doubts. I'd said in the summer, I think he's an asset we could get decent longer for, and if he went, I would probably be okay. And I doubled down on that opinion the day he scored the OG at home.
Kind of laughed, and he turned around and it was
smug as fuck, Richie, right? And I went, do you know what? That reaction just says it all for me. He thinks he's too good for that to have happened to him. That's how it came over. I mean, I could be reading too much into it or not. But what I want to see is, I contrast it with a hypothetical scenario. That was Tony Ralston, Richie, who did that. I think his head would be in his hands, and you would see a real gutted vibe, or he'd be getting the ball at the net.
Ralston would be.
Do you understand where I'm coming from?
Pulling the socks up, getting on with it, making amends.
That moment will be something I always think, I wonder if the rumours. And by the way, just one other thing I want to dispel the myth on. This is brilliant, by the way, because see when we were talking about selling him on the bus numerous times, and I've listened to various Celtic pods at the time, and they were talking about valuation, and they were talking about his merit to the team. Well, you wouldn't be this is the argument, and I hope you all remember this. You wouldn't be getting linked with Atletico Madrid, Chelsea, Man United if you were a bad player, would you? Where the fuck did he sign? Where did he sign? Union Berlin. So that argument was utter powder puff bullshit, right? By the same clowns that will tell you, don't read what you read in the tabloids, man. It's not until the deal's done you can't read it. I'm like, whoa. You're literally using a hypothetical argument that links him with cuckoo land clubs. I'm talking about clubs that are going, oh aye, he's going to be for Barcelona. I'm like, but that was getting used to add weight to. You can't say he's not a better player than Ralston, because
listen,
look at it.
I preferred Ralston for day one. I hoped Juranovic would be the upgrade, because Ralston does have moments of being Ralston. And I think that's, the homegrown Scottish players get that. Forrest still gets that to this day. They're not allowed to make a mistake. It's for fuck's sake, So with Ralston, I thought his game was coming on. I mean, he was giving his goals, he was giving his assists. His defensive work was improving every day. And then Juranovic became the number one. And I never understood why. Ralston done nothing to get dropped.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, Juranovic never improved what was there. And that's, to me, the whole point. If you're going to take somebody out, you put in better. And I didn't see that. I didn't, Juranovic did have one or two moments of brilliance, but overall.
For balance though, Richie, I would say Juranovic signing elevated Ralston's performances. I think it pushed him. I think
he needed it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then I think it did bring out the best in Ralston, which, by the way, shows one hell of an attitude. The exact attitude I want for Celtic players.
The boy would literally run through a brick wall when you see that in him, the determination in him. I think it takes a special. I don't think us Scottish people have this elite sportsman attitude as much as a lot of other countries, with obviously the social problems with drinking drugs and all the rest of the pish. But Ralston does, and I think he really does. He's bought into the Angie's philosophy along with, I think Taylor, and I'm sure a lot of people, wouldn't be sitting here now saying we really miss Taylor. He's improved that much. I know Liam, you're not a big fan, but the ones that have bought into ethos, the Scottish boys, and Ralston deserves his place back. I like Johnston. I want my Celtic team to have a real core of Scottish players in it. And Ralston to me is good enough to play in the first 11.
I mean, that's very commendable. I also think it's also idealistic, and we need to live in the real world. Yeah. I like Tony Ralston, but he's every bit the committed Celtic man backup. Yeah, to disrespect the level of effort that he's put in, and he has brought in, and the transformation is startling. But there's no doubt who the better player is, and you always play the better player.
Yeah.
And what I would say is you also need guys. What I would say is you also need guys with that attitude and mentality, the likes of Ralston, who, let's be honest, he knows his place, and in probably some respects, he's feeling quite fortunate that he got that extension and kept on, and then proved his worth. He probably knows that I love this club, I want to be part of it, and I know I'm going to feature. But see if that my part is to literally sit there and be rotated in every now and then I'm all for it. And see if you can have people with that attitude, that's worth its weight in gold.
Oh, aye. People that buy into the squad game. I think,
that's just as important.
One of Angie's attributes that he looks for is somebody that doesn't expect to be a first team pick, understands that it's a marathon and it's a 25-man game. It's not 11 and 3 subs or 5 subs anymore. Everybody will play a part, and I agree with Ralston. And we should have better than Ralston, but I still think Ralston is better than Juranovic.
I get
more consistent, and he gave his goals. Some of the goals,
Hey, Russell, Russell, can I throw just a different lens on this for a second, right? Right. So you got Ralston on one side that does everything. He's committed. He's improved. But Greg Taylor on the other side, I got one that's talking about, oh my God, he could be a future captain. He could be this. And then I've got Ralston, who to me shows better qualities. I was thinking, who's a better player? Is it Greg Taylor or Anthony Ralston? Both of them get treated completely different because Ralston's always had a good player to compete with. Greg Taylor we've thrown in, and he's had to do something what Ralston did at the beginning of his Ange career, was when Juranovic was injured, was make a name for himself in that position. And I think as well, I think we need somebody a lot better than Berby.
Absolutely.
Taylor, because I still don't think he's up to scratch. I think we still need, that side's not as balanced as the other side now. It's so off. We need somebody in that position next.
I actually read something, John. I read something today on one of the websites. We're looking at the Swansea left back, Ryan Manning, I think the name was. Never heard of him, don't watch English football.
News to me, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Just check my sources. Nope, not heard anything, mate.
Nah.
I mean, listen, I think it's undeniable. It's early days, but you know, I was talking about this on our chat and stuff back and forward. At this moment in time, Bernabei very much doesn't look like a guy that's going to push on. You know, and that's quite concerning for me. You know, when I was speaking to Russell about it, and I was saying about taking punts on, you know, ropey markets, and for me, he very much fits into that bracket. At this moment in time, I'll go out and say file under effing Juarez, because that's where I see it going.
No, there's been a couple of glimpses a good for Bernabei. And all in all, he's been absolutely gash, right? But
there was, Richie, there was glimpses for Juarez at the start as well. I think people forget we played. I think it was Braga. We got man of the match, and he ran the show. I thought, fucking hell, he looks a baller. And instead of right back, where he kind of ended up playing a couple of games, he was centre midfield that day. I thought, he looks like he played the socks sort of rolled down, remember? I thought, see his style of play as well, and he's got the techers. I thought he looked a proper player. Anyway, what we'll do from the Ralston thing is we'll expand a wee bit on it, right? Because it's Sunday Sesh. So we can go down as many rabbit holes as we want. Nobody's in any rush here. There's 146 on this double-decker bus right now. I love to see you all on the bus on a Sunday. Cheers! Hey, but when it comes to the Juranovic sale, Liam, I think Ange was, honestly, if you want my honest opinions, I think at the AGM, he was specifically referring to Juranovic, not because he'll be the only example, because he knew though in the pipeline he's off ski in January. I pre-warned us all, don't fall in love with your heroes, because he had a real sort of popularity, you know, complex in my opinion. I didn't really get it, but everyone else did, so that's fine. And if people get dewy-eyed that they get a photo with him, that's sound. Do you know what I mean? You know, some folks say never meet your heroes. Some folk meet Juranovic. I don't know. But the one thing I would say is, I think he was referring to him individually at that time. I think he was teeing up. Juranovic was going in January, by the way. Not so much Giacomakis. I don't think he knew at the AGM. That was late November. I think that one's came later. But I think Juranovic, he was acutely aware, would be leaving Liam. No, see that. But I think he knew he was the one that was going to be going, and he knew the fans love this boy, so he had to tee that one up a wee bit. But what I will say, Liam, is, right, I think that style, or that template, shall we say, of 18 months, right? Big contribution to the team. Well, his first 12 months, in my opinion. But anyway, you know, a wee bit of sort of cult hero status, and then boom, flip it and double your money. Do you think that's maybe how we're going to need to start, like, getting used to this sort of approach for Celtic? And do you think it's quite healthy? Because I think what you could see is, see if you look at it, say Andrew signed 15 players right now. 5 or 6 of them you're not going to get a penny for. The other 9 you might get valuation for. I'm making these numbers up, but it's close to that, right? 9 players. See if you were to at least double your money on all of them. Suddenly that 30 million cash reserves, 60 million, just like that, right? And that's without the prize money coming in. And I think he's trying to get Celtic into a place where actually we stop shopping in Aldi, we start shopping at Waitrose, right? Or
Phase
maybe,
2.
do you know what I mean? And I think the only way to do that is he's like, don't worry about hanging on for that 18 million bid coming in for Juranovic. Get the 7.5 in, let's go again. And the quicker we operate like this, the more agile we are, the other word they used, actually might benefit Celtic. What do you make of that, Liam? And is it going to take a wee bit of adapting for Celtic fans to get used to? Because we kind of want players to stick around 3, 4, 5 years. But this is going to be a new approach, and I think it's a more an approach adopted probably more at other clubs than what we've been used to. But I'm all for it.
I'm for it as well too. I mean, we just have to watch. We always love a badge kisser. We've fallen into that trap so many times, right? You know, like. But I think this is, you and I talked about this in the spring, Russell, when it was announced at Near Baton and Rogic was leaving, and we were saying, are we seeing that ruthless side of Ange? The Ange that we thought was just a little bit more ruthless, like fall in love with your heroes. I mean, last year was a perfect example. We all fell in love with Tom Rogic and Near Baton again. All of a sudden, they were useful players and they got the deserve and the send-off they deserved. But there was no sentimentality. There was no sentimentality. hanging around for another year. It's like they were gone.
Aye.
And I think we could see Matt Riley go. I think we could see, I don't know, there's a number of players that he might shift. You know, Gigi. Sorry, Mark, but I'm using the initials. The other day. Gigi, AJ.
I do know what you mean, though. Sometimes the double initial thing.
Sorry, MC. Didn't mean that.
No, MC. I know what you mean.
He's MC now from now on.
It's a bit hit for the judge. Do you know what I mean? It's just a bit hit for him. I think he had a point. I think the double initial thing, I find it a wee bit too curling too, to be honest. I don't mind nicknames.
Yeah, but that's it. As soon as we get that, it's like as soon as you name a pet, you know, as soon as you name an animal, you can't eat it, right? You know, it's one of those things. As soon as we give a player a nickname or he gets a song or something like that, oh, we can't get rid of them now because there's all this sentimentality. Whereas I think this is modern football now as well, and as much as you'd love to see guys finish their career and be like right sworn into the club Celtic player, I think we just have to get used to that as a transitionary thing. That that's maybe a 2-3 year experience, and we just get the most out of it when we can.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to build Steve-O this ahead of steam at a rate where I also think he's building up his case to go to the board, right? Because again, we use the term acutely aware. He must be acutely aware of what the finances Celtic are currently sitting on at. And he's obviously going, for whatever reason, this isn't locked up and in a safe and you can't touch it and everything needs to be what you bring in, you can spend. And that pile just sits and gets dusty. He must be going, it's a bit weird, but get what? See if that's the way you want to run things. Sound. Watch me sell players within a year. Watch me flip it. Double the money. I sell them. Gone. And I'll just keep using the money you bring in because I'm going to still get you profit on those and I'll still win. And I think it does. And then, obviously, the more success we are at that, Steve-O, then it opens the case for, please, sir, can I have some more? Do you know what I mean? I wonder if there's a bit of a strategy going on by him.
I think, you know, to touch on what you said at first about, do you know what? He might be short at Aldi, but if I've learned anything about Aldi, it's maybe a hidden gem and the quality's top notch. Folk just don't get a chance. And other foreign background supermarkets are available, by the way. But no, jokes aside, you know, this whole he's shot him in Aldi or he's shot him in Lidl and he wants to shop, you know, in M&S or whatever. For me, that's a complete false economy. I think that the money we put valuations and numbers on what determines good quality.
Disagree with that.
I think that's fine, that's your opinion, but I think in general, how many times do we hear people say if we buy a guy for 2 and sell him for 6, we should replace him by a guy that's 4, right? Now I get the principle of the building blocks behind that, but it doesn't necessarily guarantee top quality.
No.
Look at some of the markets and stuff that we've dipped into through Ange. Now I'm not saying that you keep going to that well because eventually it might well run out. However, what I would say is you've got to also judge either the scouting network or Ange and their judgments. He buys guys that fit a system. It's not about ego. It's not about stature in terms of where they are in the football ladder and things like that. He identifies a guy, and you know what? In cases like Carter Vickers and Jota and stuff, there might well be guys that are 6 or 7 million, right? But that doesn't have to become the norm. It's all about progression, and that could be replacing a guy that was 5 million and somebody comes in at the back end and they're 3 million. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to be as of good quality. So I think we need to get out. We need to get out of our head this idea that there's a continual building and buying, because where does that model stop? If you're always trying to go one above a couple of million, it becomes exponential. You know, it's like we've said before, you can't go and buy. What happens? You buy 4 guys in January that are 5 million. What's the expectancy come the summer? 4 guys at 6 million or similar. You just can't keep doing that. You've got to balance it out, and it's got to be based on the right people.
Steve, Celtic went 18 years without breaking their transfer record.
It's irrelevant.
That's lies though, mate, because There's not one other club I would say that's competed in the Champions League in that time that hadn't broke their transfer record in that period.
Right. Well, here's the thing. We want to do a wee bit better in Europe. Yes, of course we do. Right. Well, yeah, right. Of course we do. Right. Wait a minute. Let me just stop you there. Right. Folk hate to hear it. Look at Rangers and what they done in the Europa League with arguably a worse squad and less investment. So it's a false economy. You can't just instantly assume that spending more money guarantees better results, particularly in Europe. I think there's a calibre of player that you need to try and get in the door. Absolutely. But let's not get ourselves fooled by assuming that that's the be-all and end-all and is going to guaranteed in yield results, because it won't. It's all about long-term planning.
We're conditioned to think we've got 30 million there, but we can't, buy a few 5-6 million because it doesn't guarantee. There ain't one guarantee in football. In fact, could sign, right now it looks like Ange's got free reign. But I'm more than happy to say I think he's got free reign because the players he's identifying are all of our price range. The Celtic would go, that's sound, on you go, mate. Do you know what I mean? Because it's low risk. It's completely low risk. The fact of the matter is, yes, you sign a £6 million player. That doesn't mean, wait till you see this guy go, because £6 million at the end of the day is a drop in the ocean in European terms now. But we're now spending as a football club the same money we were 25 years ago. I'm sorry, that is a rare occurrence. You look at teams like Midtjylland, for example, that were getting linked with Giakoumakis, and it was to break their transfer record, I think, for the third time in the last year. What do you think their transfer record was 20 years ago? Don't tell me the Danish leagues. No, let me finish. Because I don't think the Danish league or their reputation, they've got all these new revenues suddenly that elevates them to that. I think they're being braver, Steve-O. I think they're speculating a wee bit more. And I do think eventually the handbrake needs to come off a wee bit of Celtic. I think there's enough cash reserve there to be a wee bit bolder. You don't spend it just to say, I've spent $6 million on a player. Tick the box. But I also think if you're being limited, and I've got a feeling there is a ceiling on what Celtic are willing to spend and willing to pay in wages right now, certainly. And I think that's never going to get you to that next level. And the last 2 decades have proven that with our European performance.
So to fire it back at you then, look at some of the so-called much smaller teams across Europe last season, either Europa League or Champions League, that spent less than Celtic, had smaller wage bills than Celtic and done better than Celtic. What's the explanation for that then?
But that's not the point. The point is
it's the point. What is the explanation for that then? But if they are able to compete and spend less money than Celtic,
who's done that?
Why is that?
Who's done that?
Well, let's use Bodo Glimt that humped Celtic.
Bodo Glimt in the Conference League.
But let's just use them as an example. I'm just using a straight up example, right? Look at teams that have played us, knocked us out. If we want to just go as simple as knocked us out of tournaments, right? That spent less or had less stuff, right? Yep. What's the reason behind that? I mean, I'm not just talking about Ange, we're talking about our failings and shortcomings across the board in tournaments and qualifiers for many years now, right? In a lot of cases, we have been put out by teams that we would expect to beat. So why is that?
Because we've not got it right, mate. At the end of the day, you've not built a team properly. But the fact of the matter is, this is getting lost in translation here. The fact of the matter is, Celtic right now sit with cash reserves, unwilling to spend it. And there is an overcautious approach, in my opinion, to class yourself as a Champions League club. That's my take on it. And right now, I think the last 15 years, not won a knockout round game in 19 years, it will be this year. I think that tells its own story, that whatever the plan and the strategy has been, this player trading model that has been so successful in the balance books hasn't actually transferred on the pitch. That is undeniable.
At this moment in time, Celtic aren't a Champions League team. They're not even a Champions League team
2 decades,
next year.
There's 2 decades we're talking about, though, mate. 19 years.
Well, it's hereditary and it's inbuilt long-term failure.
So something's not been done right, is what I'm saying.
But it's not. It can't all just be about who we buy. Sometimes it's got to be about planning.
It's a factor, though, Steve-O, in my opinion. I genuinely believe.
A factor, but as I say, it's not the be-all, end-all.
But I've never said it was the be-all, end-all. Richie, I'll come to you, big man. Take
Aye,
it away. I
okay.
enjoyed that, Steve. That was good. It's like table tennis. Back and forth. That was good.
I genuinely get what Steve was saying, but money's the biggest factor in football. Go on, if you've got it, you win things. If you don't, you don't. Look across the board, every league in the planet. If you've got the money, you win it. 20 years ago, Man City were nothing. 10 minutes ago, Newcastle were nothing. They've all got money now. They'll all be winning things. About the 30 million in the bank, I don't know. I would like to think that Ange is playing some sort of real life champ manager, football manager 23, where he's got a squad budget and he's allowed to player trade and he's allowed to try and build us. And we are a smaller club up and to conquer Europe. I genuinely think he's trying to do that in real life. It would be nice to think that money's getting banked for, I suppose, what would be phase 2, which we move on to, and Steve won't like this, but buying the 10 to 15 million pound player and paying those sorts of wages that go with it for the next kind of step in the evolution for Europe, because you need a better player. I think some of the players that we have just now, your Starfelds, are kind of shoehorned in to fill places from the decimation that happened in the kind of the end of the 10 in a row season. We're now looking to upgrade. I think we'll see O'Reilly away soon. I think Kyogo will go. And it's funny nobody's talking about Kyogo.
I don't think he will.
Well, see, this thing, everybody's talking
about
about this. We mentioned earlier on this Magic 28's the new 50 or whatever, right? Kyogo's of that age. He's banging him in left, right, and centre. He's banging him in Europe. Somebody's going to come in for him, and we won't keep him. You'll go. I'm not too fussed anymore. I gave up getting attached to players when Larson left. In fact, he was meant to come to Toronto. Me and Liam were meant to go to the game. Well, we did go to the game, the Roma game, and that was the season that he left. So we didn't even get to see him. And I gave up, hero worshipping guys anymore. They play for Celtic. I worship my club. The guys that play for it do me proud. But once you're gone, you're gone. I don't follow anybody that leaves. I've had half an eye on Tierney, but I don't really know how his situation is down there because I don't watch English football. But I think the next stage, I would like to see the next stage is this aggressive transfer that we're buying for 3, selling for 6 or 9, and banking that money to move on to the stage 2, whereas buying this more expensive player and trying to attack Europe.
Liam, it's a tricky one because, I know what Steve was saying. It's not as one-dimensional as spend more for each player and that'll get you success. But I do think, from my point of view anyway, I think there's 19 years there of evidence to go. Whatever we've done so far in those 19 years hasn't worked on a European level. But I take the point, Rangers are exception to the rule. Get that. I also think that was one season wonder syndrome. I don't think that would have happened a million times again. But it did. And the facts are there. So I do get that. I do take that on board. But for me, the 19 years, we've got to learn from it, Liam, because Celtic at the end of the day are a club that are ginormous in terms of reputation. They still have the romance, the magic. They still have, what is it, in the top 10, still most of the top 5 most attended grounds in Europe, I think, so far in the first half of the season, which is another incredible statistic. And you think, how are we being so far off it in Europe? And one of the things I do think is, I think the things as well with evaluation of players, which maybe I'm sounding like I'm being very simple about. I'm not. I think for all the 1 to 3 million pound players Ange has brought in, has really masked over how many of players we brought in that bracket that have been complete failures. And the successes get spoke about. And for every success, there's 3 Banguras. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, off the top of your head. And there's been 2 or 3 for Amido Baldes, Skepovic's, shit like that. And you start adding them all up and you go, there's been loads of examples of players like that haven't worked. and we don't like looking at them because it's better to go, well, Wanyama, 1 million, sold for 11, boom. Do you know what I mean? But for whatever the reason is, Celtic's approach, Liam, to being able to compete in Europe has to change. I think our transfer strategy could be a bit more ambitious. I think our attitude to spending could be a wee bit more ambitious. I think there's enough there of an insurance policy to back us up. I think there's enough assets on the field at present to cover us as well. But that's not the only thing. Of course it's not.
I think that's what Ange's doing right now. If you look at that last 19, 20 years, okay, that's the history. In the last year or so, what we're doing now is, I think we've built the team to fit his system first and foremost. He's looking, it's like, what's going to make that? We talked about it before when we misfired against St Mirren. We were talking about like the machine, the cog. There was one cog that wasn't clicking with the rest of them. And it didn't seem, we were thinking it was Aaron Moy that day. And it very well could be. You know, and I think what Ange's doing now is he is filling out a role, it's a system he's developing. So maybe going out and getting that one high-priced player that comes with an ego, that comes with that might not be in his thing. Maybe that's why we're getting trouble with Gio Chamakis and Taranovic. No, we're getting trouble, but that's no part of his system. And so he is just willing to he's buying the right shapes for the right squares. You know what I mean? He's putting it like circles are going in circles, squares are going in squares. We've tried for so long to put, squares in circles and, and that sort of type of metaphor, and it hasn't worked for us. The other thing I think that's we're catching up with now is we're a Champions League fan base. Everything about our stadium, everything about the experience, everything that we offer in a Champions League night, we are in the top 5 in the world in that, and we need to sort of bring the team up to that. And sometimes, some nights, that can help propel a team like it did against Barcelona, and and some of these great nights we've had at Celtic Park. But I think that's the expectation as well, and he has to develop that night because those fans are not going to have any less expectations. And so I think he's building a team, but it's going to come through a process, and it's not going to be getting that one sort of name player that comes in. I think you're going to see a series of guys that maybe have done really, really well in a system similar to Ange, and he can get really value at them, and it's probably only 2 to 3 years.
So can I throw something out there to you then, right? Having had a time to sort of take in everything that's been said after I went off on one. What I'm saying is so let's bring it back to basics, right? Which is money and revenue, right? So just bear with me here. We say we've got this sort of fabled 30 million, whatever it is, maybe grown in the bank, all right? And that's fine. I'm not saying that we penny pinch and we want to be bragging about having a great spreadsheet and all that kind of stuff, but let me just throw this in before I actually go to my main point. If you think about that buffer, that money sitting there, and by being that kind of slightly cautious model that we had to buy and selling, that ultimately was the difference maker for us through the close down COVID. So we got to a stage where we very little didn't go into this exponential debt that other clubs that we've seen had done. Let's look at Rangers, right? So see if we had went for that super aggressive, high wages, high fees through that and whittled that buffer down, then we went into COVID, we could have found ourselves in a worse position whereby even what we're doing at this moment in time, we wouldn't be able to do. So that begs the question, if we want to improve and put better players on the park, maybe for a higher fee, with a view of saying, if we do that, domestically, it should take care of itself, but you've got one eye on doing slightly better in whatever tournament it is that you've got in Europe. We need to think, how can we increase our revenue? Because if you look at Celtic and most SPFL clubs, the revenue is it's pretty much skewed to match day tickets, match day experience, and merchandise, right? Player trading comes into it with us, maybe not so much other teams, but us, we've got a wee bit of that comes in.
Very quickly on that, there was a comparison made when Aberdeen played Burnley in the UEFA Cup qualifier. I don't know if you remember, but 3 years ago. And it was something like, these aren't quite factual, but it was something like 90% of Burnley's revenue was TV money.
Yeah.
Over 50% of Aberdeen's with ticket revenue.
So that's the thing. If you look at teams, I think they've done a couple of seasons ago whereby it was the Premier League, and essentially all teams could have survived with no fans because of the amount of money they get in. Now, we're never going to, obviously we need to, the problem with Celtic and any club in Scotland is at grassroots level, how our game's presented and how it's marketed and all that is nonsense. So it kind of limits us in that first instance. The product isn't put out there and it doesn't attract enough money coming in. So we need to think, see in terms of being super aggressive and rolling the dice with just players and money, how can we generate more money coming in from other revenue streams? Now, I just want to throw it out there because it's been spoken. I'm not saying that this is what we should do, but for example, all this chat about the fabled hotel and the museum and things like expansion of the stadium.
But Steve,
is this better?
Super aggressive. I don't think I think there's a middle ground here. Like this, and I know not necessarily you. I was in the live chat today watching the Blether, just like a normal viewer, to be honest with you, which I love. And me and David Ferguson were having a bit of a ding dong. David Ferguson, member of the Boise Bus, legend. I've met him in person. He's a sound guy, and but he was like, "Oh, we'd be skint if we did this." I'm like, everyone seems to think either go ultra cautious or it's whether it be super aggressive or chuck everything at it. I still think with the 30 million reserve there and the money we're generating on a player trading model, there is scope. There is a middle ground here that could be wisely spent that shows a bit more ambition than we've shown in the last 2 decades. And I do think that would contribute to taking us to the next level, Steve-O. It's not as black and white as super aggressive.
Listen, maybe the wording I've put across has been a bit blurred there. I do agree that there's room for manoeuvring and room for a slight upshot, but what I'm saying is take that out yet, because that was also, for me anyway, in my opinion, that's only going to yield small improvements. We need to think, how can we bring more money into the club through other avenues that's going to increase the revenue, which is ultimately going to allow us to do more on it. Because we're in this kind of middle stage where it's, as you say, you either are super cautious or you run the risk of going. We need to strike a fine balance. But our income is pretty much capped season to season. It's almost identical in terms of how much we make in through merchandise and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, if you win cups and all that, and it makes it go more Champions League and stuff, and hopefully that becomes more regular. But we need to look beyond what's in front of our nose and think, how can we bring in more things? And I says, the likes of things like the museum and the hotel and all that nonsense. Is that something that's going to be worth the investment at the front end? And is it going to, over the years, is it going to yield more income that's going to help us do it? So they need to think, all these things that they've touted and floated, are they feasible and are they going to make that difference?
Or, Steve-O, will it be this faster flipping players mode that Ange, I think, is going, they're full of shite, I'll just do it myself because I'm being promised whatever I bring in I can spend. And that's, but then
does that have a shelf life on it because it's dependent on the manager?
He forced his hand. And this is the thing, Richie, we've seen this movie before with good managers, and this will be the big concern for Celtic supporters. See, when you've got a top boss in, Richie, don't push your luck with him too much.
No,
I think right now he's given autonomy, Richie. But I think it's autonomy, when you look just a wee bit between the lines, I would say it's autonomy that's pretty risk-free from their point of view.
From their point of view at the moment?
I think so. I think it looks brilliant, like, hey, look, we've changed. We're totally different. We've given the manager all this leeway. Look how many guys he's brought in there and signings. I think when you look at the fees paid, the board are going.
I think I read something today. Ange's net spend is minus 2.6 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so he's lucky, apparently. I just hope I just hope we've learned for the Seville season, not obviously their one. We're not backing a Neil after it. We could have went on and dominated. I know we have dominated this century, but we could have killed them off stone dead, and none of this nonsense that's going on now. But I think. Oh, yeah, I forgot what I was talking about. What were we talking about again? Sorry about that.
No, you're fine.
My boys just walked in and threw me.
You're fine. Don't worry about it, Richie. I'll come back to you because I know what you mean about Seville. Now, Seville now gets reflected on by a lot of fans as, but come on, there was huge contracts and that. I think, though, the fact is, we were on the cusp then of being 10 years in a row Champions League. Because if you look at it...
Porto went on to win the the Champions League the following year. We went on to go out in the qualifiers, I think.
You need to remember then, see when we qualified for the Champions League in 01-02, I think the reward for that was something under £10 million all in, right? Now it's like 25, right? That's just your sort of UEFA pot, let alone your TV revenue. So it's completely, folks say, I remember arguing with a guy who sells badges on Twitter, and he was like, "You're out your depth talking about this, mate," or something. And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking?" He goes, "We'd end up in the same amount of debt as we did under O'Neill." And I'm like, "We were playing in Umbro kits then, we're now playing Adidas."
Aye.
Right? Season tickets are about £150 more expensive now. TV revenue for the Champions League alone is ×5. The prize money from UEFA is about ×5 since then.
Aye.
And we're paying less in wages. So no, that argument's blown apart. But I do think at that point in time, Richie, O'Neill was on the cusp of us being, I think he could have left. And I think if we just carried on, we couldn't have. But the one thing I would say though as well, he couldn't, see if he was given £20 million, say, he couldn't have went for 29, 30-year-olds again. That was a needs must to challenge a very strong Rangers team. Let's be fair here. I mean, they were, we all know what they were spending.
Yeah, he built
so he had
a ready-made side, didn't he?
Yes. Everyone that came in was ready to rock, right? So he would have needed to have changed his philosophy and the types of players he signed. Because there's another 20, but they need to have resale value this time. Do you know what I mean? That would have been.
We've got to be sustainable. Ange's model looks that way. My worry, and I think that's what I was going to say earlier, is the next stage when Ange does go. We need an upgrade on player, financial upgrade on player. We're going to move into the 10 to 15 million pound bracket. Will the board back him? Because he's not going to stick around if he's not. And I think we do need to move into that if we keep harking about the Ajax model, the Porto model.
They've evolved.
They're now buying left backs for across the water for £19 million. Right? I'm not saying we buy them, but that's the kind of money that they're now spending. Yeah, they're flipping guys for 80, but can we get there?
Of course we can. That's the thing. We've got to be ambitious.
I think Ange is playing his real life version of Football Manager, where he's trying to make as much money as he can to then upgrade to a bigger player and a better player. Hopefully as the Football Manager games go, we can do upgrades in stadiums and stuff as well. Because
we'll come to Liam, because Liam, I do think there is an argument. I think the reason Andrew's so drawn to Celtic is I do think he looks at the flaws the same way we do. I think he's looking at it going, this is an open goal here. I think he sees the potential in Celtic big time. And I think he knew I could win titles there pretty quick, if not at the first attempt, as he did. I think he thought, within 2 years, I could have brought them in 60 million. Why the fuck are they not in the Champions League more often? Watch me go. I think he's seen Celtic for what they are, with subsidiary eyes, as opposed to conditioned, the way we have been the last 2 decades to go, but we can't even buy a player because it's playoffs for the Champions League. So imagine if we didn't qualify, then we've got him on a big wage. And all that conservative sort of attitude for 19 years. I don't mean that conservative. Do you know what I mean? I'm not getting political here, guys. But you know what I mean? I think that cautious. I think he's looking at this going, I've got a bank of players that I can bring in on the sort of wages and fees they're trying to undersell their other managers for. But I've got some gems here. And then once I get the gems in, I'm then going to explode for then on, Liam. What do you think of that?
I think if this was a movie, I think Ange would be played probably by Russell Crowe. But this would be the exact same this would probably be the exact same plot line of how you would build a narrative around a story like that. You've got someone that's always wanted to be a manager, but wanted a manager on a world level. For this whole opportunity to open up for him, that's exactly what it is. And I think that's exactly how he sees it. I don't think he can believe his luck. I think he's smart enough to know about the culture and the history of their club that he knew exactly what he was getting into. And when he told him and threw barbs at him like, how's it feel to be the second choice? And I think he says, I don't even know if I was their third choice. You know, you show that he knows that they dropped the ball, and that is a door that opened for him. And I think this isn't a stepping stone for him. He knows what a stepping stone is. That's why that's great for players like Juranovic and all that. But that's not Ange. Ange wants to be adored, just like Edward, right? I think he needs that adoration. He needs it. He's here for the glory. And I think that's all it's about, creating this. He wants to be up there with Jock Stein and Man O'Neill. And you know what?
Liam,
Liam,
you're saying that. I want to push back a wee bit, right? And I'll tell you why. I didn't like the language he used when he was describing Juranovic leaving. I thought he was overselling it as a good thing. That was my honest opinion. He went, "Oh, I'm delighted for him." I'm like, he's not joined. See if he joined one of the clubs he was linked with, according to half the fucking belters out there, right? Fair enough. I'd be like, see when Kieran Tierney joined Arsenal, as much as they were maybe a fading force at the time, they're a big club, right? And you think, delighted for him, fair dues. See when Edward joined Crystal Palace, Ayer joined Brentford, I wasn't delighted for them. Juranovic joining Union Berlin, I think he was trying to make sure that the political stance of Celtic at this point on the transfer is it's all positive, everyone's happy. But for me, looking just between the lines and maybe being a cynical bastard like I am sometimes, Liam, right? I was just going, what are you delighted for? I don't want Celtic players delighted they're joining Union Berlin. Yeah. I know who we are, Liam. Do you know what I mean?
That's just paper. I think that's just positive vibes and all that Ange is getting as well. I think you've got a guy that's really popular in the dressing room. And so, you know what? You've got to make sure. I think there's a lot of boys that are going to miss his company, going to miss having a laugh. It might look like a bloody firecracker. He could be a probably brilliant guy in a night out and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's just Ange sugarcoating it. It's Ange being fly. Him being sharp. That's his man management style. It's great. You didn't fit into the team, but we had a great team while you were here. And I want to have that positive energy that anybody comes to Celtic. If it doesn't work out, there's no hard feelings and all that. As long as you give your best, and we'll figure out how to get the most value from each other, and we both leave happy. And that's the way he did it with Roger, did it with Beaton, and I think we're seeing it now. I think this is his management style, where it's just like, come here, we'll create an experience together. Some will go longer, some will go shorter, and we'll all hit different heights and lows and all that. But it's all about the experience. And I think it's like, while you're here, we're all a good team and we're brothers for life, you know. And I hope that's the way it is.
Liam,
by the way, I hope we draw him in Europe. I'm absolutely.
I want to tear him a new one. Fuck him.
Liam, see that whole narrative you're just giving over Ange? Couldn't agree more.
Aye.
I think that's spot on.
Yeah.
Does that apply to him too, Liam?
Can I add into that?
Let me just quickly, does that apply to him as well, Liam?
Aye, I think he has to be part of that.
Because that gives, if that's his, short careers and, I'm like, you better not be talking.
No, he's the puppet master.
Yeah.
Don't look at themselves that way. He's the big hub. Everybody else are spokes. He's the big hub.
Hopefully. Steve, on you go, mate.
No, it was just to touch on what you said there. I can see how you were maybe a wee bit sort of taken aback with the wording of it. Part of me thinks it's simply, and I might have misread the guy, but almost it's like a teacher seeing a student moving on. I think he brings in folk and thinks, I can sculpt you and mould you and I can make you better. And see at the end of it, if your time's going to be somewhere else and you move on, then I like to feel that we've achieved a goal and moving you on. Now, all right, it'd maybe be more applicable if he was joining a big blue chip club as opposed to Berlin. However, the way you've got to look at it is just put, if we look at figures and just look at 10 million or potentially 7, whatever it is, million, he's moving to a bigger league, let's be honest, and he's moving to a bigger wage bracket. So in terms of that development, it kind of touches on what he's done. So he's like, well done, our job's done, you move you on. See, in terms of talking long term, and he's on their own contract and stuff, I think, and I don't think it would happen, but do you think there's value in if we think he's the man to move us forward, and we're talking about having this aggressive, like sort of buy, sell, flipping, rotational model to sort of build on and improve. See if we really want to get progressive, and we're at this moment in time depending on one man, and that's the problem. Whereby if that doesn't carry on to whoever the new manager, when he eventually left, may well be, we're almost starting again. So would it not be, if you've got somebody like him who, as Liam says, potentially wants legacy, feels settled, understands the club, the ethos and everything like that, we've always spoke about having this director of football that oversees everything, that thinks long term, thinks youth to ever looks over everything.
Yeah.
Why are we not, instead of try to just tie him down to a contract, which would be nice and something what to do, but long-term planning, could we get him into that sort of Ralph Rangnick role where he oversees, and we move him upstairs and say, we will give you football and autonomy to build a dynasty here. We will give you the tools to work with a manager and make us what you think we should be. Because let's be honest, Ange, it's not going to happen in a couple of years that you're here, unfortunately. It's just not the way it works. What you're talking about is a long-term project. We can help you do that within an extent whilst you're manager. Yes. But we can help you realise that dream by helping us out and stepping upstairs and overseeing it all.
Yeah, I actually get that. I've got a few takeaways from how Postecoglou's landed at this role, Rich, and we've obviously never heard your views on the bus, so I'm quite intrigued to see what you think about it, because he does seem to be front, left, and centre of. Remember. Let's rewind.
I'm going to say it again. He's playing Football Manager.
I'm going to put it to you.
Control of everything.
Aye, but let me get.
He's not signed to Rebo West, mate.
No yet. That's it.
Good knowledge, mate. Good knowledge. But Richie, for 4 months, Richie, we watched Eddie Howe being chased and him batting his eyelids and maybe a bit fear, right? But the thing of the matter is, he was going to be coming with these merry men, and there was about 75 of them, right? That's a lot of contracts to sort out. So,
700 miles.
But the fact was, there's going to be, I'm like, is there really sustainability in that? Because the fact I get, the vibe I get is, whoever was above Eddie Howe, wherever it is he goes next, surely he's going to take all his merry men with him anyway. So it's the same principle, but we've just done it with one, right? But here's my wee fucking snippet to you, Richie. I think Postecoglou is like, oh, fucking hell. Oh, you're leaving me in the shit here, lads. But deep down was going, this is what I want.
I think that is what he wants.
I think he knew. Fucking leave me to do the players. I don't need some dafty up there telling me to sign John Spencer. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. He seems to have done that wherever he's went. No, he's went on his own. He said he thrives on that.
But this is the thing I was going to say. Sorry, Richie. This was the thing I was going to say. This wasn't by planned by Celtic, by the way. No. This has happened through default because they have landed.
We lucked out.
They lucked out. It wasn't the plan. It was they offered him the job, and we're like, the other positions we've not got covered yet. We're working on it, and he's went, "I'll just fucking do it." That's what. Sorry, that was the other bit I wanted to add. They've not. This wasn't by design.
No, and we lucked out, and I mean. The guys get balls of steel. There's no other way to say it. I mean, you travel across the world to a club of our size without expectations on your own. And Eddie Howe wouldn't travel the length of Britain with his backroom staff, So, you've got to give kudos to the guy straight away. I've got to admit, I wasn't convinced straight away. I watched the West Ham game, the Preston North End friendlies, and we looked horrible. And it wasn't until maybe the third or fourth game into the season that you started to see that actually. Yeah, I was panicking. I was like, "Oh my God, what have we done?" But faith in the big man. He's been a revelation. What a hope he But I know I keep saying he's playing Football Manager, but it almost like he is. It's like he's wanting to take control of everything, right down to the grassroots level, where he's got McManus in a day, trying to instill his type of football on the young ones, so there's that progression straight into the first team. A lot like Barcelona have been doing for years. And it seems so straightforward when somebody says it. Why have we not been doing it? I think that's the bigger question, is why have we not been doing something that's so fucking painfully obvious? to everybody. Yet for years we've been new manager, new style, who nobody's coming through apart from the odd one. You know, we lucked out with Tierney and a few others. And seems to be building a legacy, and I like this director of football idea, where he brings somebody in and basically as an apprentice and teaches him his way to continue his legacy while he oversees everything else.
Liam, sometimes in football these days, I think there's too many chefs spoil the broth. I think you see at clubs, there's a complete contrast between who the head coach is now and who the director of football is. Director of football may have been appointed at the same time as a manager. That manager goes, who they had chemistry with, they were hired together. And then the next guy who comes in, nothing in common, don't get on. Their viewpoint on what a player brings to a team is the polar opposite of that, but they've got to work in harmony. And I think that just confuses it all a wee bit. It's an old school thing. I mean, I think if you go back to Man United, particularly in the 90s, early 2000s, I think Ferguson, yes, he did obviously have a brilliant relationship. I think it was Martin Edwards he had the relationship with. But realistically, it was him just saying to him, go get him and pay the money. And if it breaks a transfer, go just do it because I rate him. And loads of gems were signed as well by Ferguson for little money. He seemed to have the autonomy that I think creates success. And I definitely, as Kaiser comes in and says, too many chiefs, not enough Indians. That was the old saying, wasn't it? You know, and I think it's actually a very old school setup we've got right now. That okay, there's the odd iPad here and there, Liam, right? But trust me, I think when you look at Ange, I'm looking at the old school version of what a football club manager used to be. We've got right now, and the success doesn't lie, Liam.
But that's not old school mentality when it comes to modern management right now. People have found that when you're creating a brand or a really successful business, you know, you have to have a great support team and all that, but you got to have one sort of prominent vision that everybody can gather around. And I think Ange supplies that as well too. And I think we're also the right size to accommodate that vision as well, because he does have access probably to our board. He probably does have a relationship with Desmond now. He wouldn't get that at Liverpool with, you know, American billionaires or Newcastle with Arab sheiks and all that. And then
they still got a signing committee.
Probably. Well, here's the thing I was going to say. Somebody used to tell me when I was starting off in creative and all that, you know, about dealing with management styles and all that. Nobody's ever built a statue to a committee. You know, there's never been a committee had a statue erected to them. It's always a single individual, but you want to get that focus for people and you want to get his style, and you are buying that. But you know that he's thinking Celtic 24 hours a day. And I think it's good to have someone like that in charge, you know, and it takes responsibility, right? And it takes accountability as well. And that's the thing I think Ange just needs to help us a wee bit more. We're not used to him yet with this playful, nobody's getting signed, nobody's going out the door, I've heard no information yet. I think that tarnishes that part of his role, that he wants to be the one guy, that guy that's in charge of everything. Be a little bit more honest with us as well, Ange. We don't like these wee games.
Yeah, I get that. I take that, Liam. I think that's a fair point.
I think that autonomous style. I like a dictator. It's good.
Steve-O, I think Liam raised a couple of good points there, Steve-O. I'll come at you next, mate, because we're trying to go around the clock, right? I'll come at you next, Richie, right? You'll get used to it, mate. Don't you worry. It's good to be enthusiastic in your debut, mate. But Steve-O, there is a unique factor here with the power and autonomy, whatever word you want to use, that Ange has at Celtic. I do like to remind people that is not because Celtic have been progressive or, you know, completely bought into Ange. I think they did luck out on this one. I think it was desperate situations and fuck. Now he's here. We've not actually got a director of football lined up. Right, who have you got?
Yeah.
And he's right. So I think they have lucked out on it. But now he is. Is there an argument here, Steve-O, right, that in the future, maybe that is how it should be? Because the last time I remember it being like this was O'Neill. Now, I know people talk about the debt and all that stuff. That would have recovered the next couple of years with Champions League qualification, right? That is, in my opinion, because that money was about to ramp up. And we had a team good enough. With one or two additions, we would have been I think we'd have been, by the time Strachan took over, 7-8 years in a row, Champions League groups, if not second rounds, right? Honestly,
Yeah.
I believe that. And I think you look at the money then generated, we'd be having a whole different conversation now. This is the first time we've seen it again. And whilst, yes, I think Celtic have been fortunate to land upon the situation, Steve-O, is it maybe now that we look at this and go, do you know what? Maybe the succession planning we talk about wouldn't work if there's someone there from the era before. And maybe you just need to accept when this guy goes, we then entrust our, the powers that be into someone all over again. And they might have a completely different take, but that might be the next direction of travel the club will take.
There's merit in both arguments, to be honest. It really is. It really is. It's a toss of a coin, because if you look at some of the one manager and another that we've had over the years, and they've come in with wildly different ideas. For example, I look at Dyer, and I think Dyer was a kind of prototype version of the beta version of what we've got right now, where he was coming in with all these ideas that on principle would have really worked, and if they stuck with it and fine-tuned it, it would have got better. Then he left and we brought in Neil Lennon, we just scrapped it all and went back to, telling a lie, we went to Rodgers and then we done it and he was allowed a wee bit of autonomy. He kind of flipped it up and then he left and then we went back to, it was all torn up, we went to Neil Lennon. So it depends on who you're getting in, to be honest.
Steve-O, I want your opinion on this, because I've never asked you this before, right? Because I think it's a brilliant point you bring up Rodgers. You're absolutely spot on. I think he did that first year because we needed it, right?
Yeah.
And there was even Lawwell was kind of like, oh, this guy's good, right? And we're in the shit. We just lost penalties to Sebco.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was the banter years. Don't forget, Celtic went out with the Scottish Cup to Sebco.
Yeah,
I
know.
And it was during the banter years. And I do think at that point, not because they wanted to give Rodgers all the keys to the doors, right? I think even they knew, we need a new bit of guidance here. But they took it off him after 2 years, in my opinion, Stephen. I'm not trying to give your opinion on this, but I felt after 18 months to 24 months, suddenly it had changed again. And I think, whoa, you've let him get your club back on track. And then it's like, now we want our ball back. They won't do this with Ange, will they? And give us your opinion too, by the way.
I mean, again, it's hard to tell, and it all comes down to the people that we've got running the show. Now, listen, I'll just put them as a mute point. We've got all. Now, during the sort of period that Rodgers was there, Wall very much was the day-to-day guy who was undoubtedly 100% in charge. So, that's a complete ego clash. Now, I'm not foolish enough to kid on and say that now he's in this non-executive chairman thing, that he's not going to wield some level of power, right?
He's the only man with chairman in his job title.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, so let's just play a bit of devil's advocate and play benefit of the doubt and say, on large, we've kind of been going down a completely different route. Now, you could argue the toss with that and say we went down a completely different route for those first years with Rodgers and then it petered out. But I really don't know. I think the model that's coming with Ange, maybe this is based on the guys that we're signing and the fees that are involved and all that kind of stuff. But what he's doing seems but for me at least, a slightly more long-term sustainable style. Whereas we didn't spend huge amounts of money with Rodgers, but with him being Brendan Rodgers came that kind of Hollywood aspect that everything you knew was going to cost that wee bit more, and not a wee bit more, a lot more if he was allowed to run with it.
But just very quickly, Steve-O, again, I think it's a good point, because I've never seen Celtic sign as many players on 5-year contracts as what they have under Ange. I think that has been so noticeable from 27, 28-year-olds, i.e. 50-year-olds, Richie. I think, Steve-O, I've never seen that many players be signed on 5-year deals. But Steve-O, you've brought this up, and I think let's talk about it.
Yep.
That nucleus of players all coming from the one league, eventually, if you keep going dipping into that market, if there were a day Ange were to leave, or there were a day Celtic decided to take the reins back off him, like I suspect they did with Rodgers. My hunch, I could be wrong, but that's how it looked to me. If they were to do that to Postecoglou, how many of them stick around for, the next manager, if it were to be a downgrade of all scales like it was for Rodgers to Lennon? No offence, Lennon, because I love you.
No, I think that's true, and obviously we discussed that, and that was my one thing where I said, that's like, is it becoming a case of these players are signing for the club and division, and the what Ange's laid out to, this is what Celtic offers, or are they signing solely for him, or is it a wee combination of both? And I says I didn't want to oversaturate it, not because I didn't think they were good players, but just my concern exactly was that. Ange's talking about this rolling, consistent model of refreshing and changing it up and stuff. So has he got longer term than we can think right now plans, but he doesn't fear doing that? Because all right, guys that come in as managers will always go to the go-to guys. You never get guys that sign the same 2 or 3 players and bring them in, no matter where they go, right? But what he's doing just seems a wee bit more sort of organic and a wee bit more thought out. So.
But do you not think as well you could totally flip that, right? And I think you could do a Bustalgia in 5 years and go, he just went to the same fucking league that he just left. How one-dimensional is? Do you know what I mean? Like, because
listen, that's pretty clear.
When it becomes past tense, Steve-O, things start looking completely different, right? And you look at it through a different prism. I will move on because I love. The Sunday session, by the way, still at 170 live. Hit that like button.
That's healthy, by the way. That's very good. Well done, everybody. That's good.
It's charming, man. Ryan McGinley. He's a bit of a Celtic celebrity if it's the Ryan McGinley, I think. Top boy. And he's saying, good evening, guys. I'll put this one to you, Richie, on your debut. Put you on the cosh, mate. Right?
Yes.
Good evening, guys. His question for you is the transfer of O enough as a replacement for Chaos Giacomakis? I think we need to try and sign both O and Cho to fill the gap. If Cho is up, it feels like I'm about to say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Do you know what I mean? Reading that.
With a Christmas song sorted, isn't it? Do you know what? I don't know enough about. I've read that he's had his medical. It's going to be announced. He's definitely coming. Cho, we're still in for. It's up to him now. And we want him now, but it might be the summer. It might never happen. Who fuck knows? I don't really know enough about the guy. Giacomakis, on the other hand, though, I think he's. I think he gives us a different dimension, but I don't think he's built for Ange ball. I think he tries, but he's.
You think?
Richie,
built for it, man.
Richie, rather than let me dress the question up a wee bit differently. Then, would Giacomakis out and one in, bear in mind the conversation we had about Bernabei earlier, how long it can take to adapt to a team, same age, right? Completely different continent, similar story. Is that enough for the second half of this season? Because if he were to have the Bernabei adapting period of time,
it seems that we normally
a guaranteed goal scorer leaves, that's a bit more of a gamble. So do you think, like Ryan's saying, you might need to get 2 in? And even if they don't get to adapt, they might scrap the goals between them to do enough. Do you know?
I mean, for all my love on Maeda, I'm hoping he's not going to be our second striker. Well, whatever one comes in, fits in or gets up to speed. No, I don't think it's enough just bringing the one striker in if Giacomakis goes. I think we'd need somebody else.
If Giacomakis was staying, we needed 3 anyway. Because I'm a big believer of that.
Well, I think we do. I mean, you look at how he rotates the squad, and especially with substitutions. I mean, the front 3 are getting swapped out every game, so one of them goes down. You need a backup. I know we've got a few players across the front that can fit in there, but they're not out and out strikers. Maeda, maybe to finish a game, but I wouldn't start him as a striker. I would rather have a natural striker there.
I think that I was discussing this with my mate earlier on today, and we're talking about Giacomakis. And remember what I said to you a while back about I think certain signings will be profile based signings based on certain demographics that a player achieves, stats basically. So he has a body of things where he wants to see, I want to see X, Y, and Z from a certain player each game. This is the qualities I'm looking for. And it will be where folk like it or not. It'll be stat-based stuff. Examples that fit that criteria will be brought to him to look over videos or whatever and then choose. And I think Giakoumakis has probably been that situation whereby he's met the demographics of goals, touches in the box, whatever it may well be for a striker. I don't know, right? I'm just, broadly speaking.
I've got a feeling, Steve-O, I think Giakoumakis, he did brilliant, right? And he was from a different league. But I've got a feeling he was one that was suggested to Ange as opposed to...
So that's what I'm saying. So I think
I think these ones will be different because I think he'll have been more involved. I think it was Ange was like, what's he done? He's a top scorer in Holland. Well, fucking give me them because we've got about 12 players right now.
That's what I was looking at.
So a few of them last season were like that, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think no, listen, it's fine. So what I'm saying is absolutely, I think he's been presented to him as he ticks off these key points that you're looking for, right? He's looked at him, he's rolled the rust over him, and he's probably thought, right, top goal scorer, he's cheap. Is he going to fit my system long term? Probably not, but we need a striker and he ticks all the boxes. Get him in, right? With a view of probably moving him on. Now, what I said to my friend today, and I might be wrong, I'd like to think that there's some element of truth in it. See, when you look at the guy Cho or O or both, right? I think we could be looking at. I think the Ocho it's a
Cho's before those.
Aye. So it's what I'm saying is I think we could be looking at a potential plan B from Ange with these signings, and that plan B being two up front. Now, the reason I say that is I'm maybe generalising, but see when we generally look at the guys from that Asian market, particularly the strikers, and at least what I saw of Cho at the World Cup, very similar in the work rate aspect, and the pressing, the pushing, and running and getting into ghosting into positions that Kyogo is. Now,
Steve-O.
for me, Giakoumakis does not do that. He does not do that. That's why he does not play two up front.
But I don't think he gave it a run.
He's never played two up front.
And do you know what I think's funny, Steve-O? Because I think I would love to see it, by the way, pal. I think it's a brilliant point you make. Have you noticed there's quite a lot of right? The Celtic supporters who have a real love for Ange, like he's Jesus Christ. Do you know what I mean? Like anything he says is gospel, right? And there seems to be, I think they don't realise they undersell Ange when they'll say, well, he'll not change his formation. He'll not play two up top. Ange doesn't do that. I'm a wee bit like, listen, like the elite managers have many ways to skin a cat. And I think you're underselling Ange a wee bit when you suggest he would just completely point blank refuse to play two up top. I think you're absolutely right. See, for whatever reason, Giakoumakis didn't fit Ange's.
He doesn't, and that's what I'm saying.
I think it's more his character, though, than his style of play.
Well,
I don't think he likes the Mavericks, Steve-O.
I think that's part of it. It will be part of it, right? But what I would also say is see, for me, for two up front, it's that little and large combination. It's not a little and large combination because it's just one wants to stand there and doesn't do anything. But what my point is see if you've got, at least what I've seen, videos can be very deceptive, right? But what I've seen of these two guys that we've been linked with, there's a lot of work rate in there, including the goals. Now, let's be honest, Giakoumakis, he would bustle and he would rough folk up and he would come deep. But see, when it came in the box, he pretty much just wanted the ball put onto him and I'll put it away, right? Instinctive, but he didn't make those same intelligent runs that you maybe got from Kyogo, and that's why it didn't really work. Maeda, as you says, he's not, for me anyway, he's not a striker. He's really just like a pseudo winger. So you're never going to get Maeda and Kyogo up front. It's just not going to work. But if you have a guy who is an absolute, out and out striker, like these guys supposedly are, with those qualities, I think you'll see us moving at that round as well. And with the addition also of Kobayashi, I think there's another plan B up there that might be three at the back as another option. So I think he's looking at potential formation changes where we can do two up front or a back three.
Do you know what I love, Steve-O? Finally, someone says Ange is capable of mixing up his formations. And it's not a dig at Ange by saying that. Because that myth has to get obliterated, Liam. Too many people think, oh, no, you'll upset Ange if you say he could play a different formation. It's mental, the protection. You're giving a guy protection he doesn't need. You don't. If you're telling me he's managed trophy-laden career, 26 years, and he's
And
played
done
the
the same
same
thing.
formation for
Nah.
26 years. Come on, Liam. What do you make of that, pal?
Oh, well,
Nonsense.
one, I like three at the back as well, Steve. I thought when we signed Johnson, that looked like we could go three at the back. And you're right, with Kobe Ashley as well. He looks solid, by the way. I like him there.
Yep.
Also, as well, you might see us transitioning up front in a different way as well, where you get three strikers. Like we always see the way Jota and Abada and that switch wings all the time, and that gives them nightmares. You might see different people forming into the striker role. That could be something as well that can throw a lot of teams off because of a bit more dynamics in our attack as well. But I'd love to see him change it up. And I think maybe having a more agile striker or the two play off is maybe a much better than that little and large type of combo that we're used to seeing as a two up front. That maybe it's a two-pronged attack, but maybe one drops a wee bit deeper than the other, you know, and then he just transitions between the two. I'd love to see that. You know? And again, in Scotland, I think teams we can do it. Aye, we should be playing the three back at home. You know, we should be against some of these teams.
From the video with the boy O, from what he sees, he doesn't look like he's a particularly small guy. So he's not small in stature. He still looks strong. But he also, what he does, he seems, again, videos, listen, YouTube videos are the fucking bane any sign. You know, pretty much you could show me one in Bangura or Amido Baldy that looks shit hot, right? But the point is, on face value, what you see, he does all the right things. He does the Jackie Marcus. He comes back, you see him tackling, you see him, but he's more mobile. And that's what Jackie Marcus doesn't have. And if you can do that hybrid with a bit of strength, bit of size, but mobile, that could be deadly with alongside a guy like Kyogo.
Good point, Steve. All right, we're going to round that chat up because it's now time, guys, for the Celtic Clinic. Now, there's 166 watching live, and this is the first time we've done this, and it's on the Sunday Sesh. So, guys, I just want you all to know right now, this is a safe space for everyone to talk. You can be honest here right now. No one's watching. We need your honest truths here, guys, because it's time to discuss, Liam, the confessions of a Celtic fan, right? And what does that mean? That means your deepest, dark... Do you know that one? You go, fuck, I've never told anyone that. From a Celtic fan's prism. Do you know what I mean? And there's got to be a few here. Yeah,
Father Boyce has got his own confession.
Oh, listen, this is the Clinic. We're all Celtic supporters at the end of the day, right? We're all Celtic, but there's got to be something over the years that have really upset us. Or a myth that's been said about a player who we think was overrated. Or do you go to the games and you've always left 10 minutes early? Or do you think you'll never walk alone? It's cheesy. Hey, it could be anything. It could be anything, right? So let's open the Clinic up to everyone in the chat. Get your comments in. This is a safe space. I'll kick it off, right? I'm happy to kick it off. I've got a pet hate, right? I have to confess, Liam. Firstly, I'll say I find every single thing we do being compared to Rangers annoying, because that's not a bar I set Celtic at, right? That annoys me. But there's one that's quite bad. And I know it's a song that means a lot to a lot of people, but see that, oh, Liam, man. See when they sing, "We are Celtic supporters, faithful through and through." I always know we're getting beat, right? And I always know that song starts getting sung in the stand because we're losing. And I just think it's cheesy shite. That if I was a player, I'd be like, I'd rather get booed. I would rather be getting booed because I know we've let you down than hearing, oh, over and over, we'll follow you. I'm like, oh, no. Like, I'd be more like, no, be raging at me, mate. I'm fucking annoyed. Do you know what I mean? But I'll put this out to you. This is the Celtic Clinic. James Graham not quite got the grasp of it yet. He's confessing he's a serial killer. So that's a bit of a concern.
It's mine.
It'll catch on eventually, James, what I'm trying to do here. But this is going to be a segment. Whenever we do a Sunday Sesh, we're going to open up the clinic. Everyone dives into rehab for half an hour, and we all accept there's a wee bit that we kind of don't like that much that we maybe normally wouldn't admit. I'll go to you, Liam, first, as the man with the most experience, mate. Tell us one of your confessions, mate.
Well, I really can't go Celtic TV. Sometimes I have to listen
That's
to
good.
in Canada, and Jerry McCulloch just drives me absolutely mental. And as well, the other one that's in Celtic TV, the wee guy that does the interviews, it kills me. It kills me to see, you watch the polish and stuff that you see over here in North America when people are doing broadcasts and all that. And Celtic is just so, it's like so school play stuff, you know? So it's like guys doing your street, just doing a wee podcast like ourselves. But, you know, Jerry McCulloch, it's not just his voice, his style of talking, but his opinions as well. Like he's reading headlines after the Celtic do and he's driving players and telling you what sort of form they're on. He even tried to make a joke the other day there about the VAR, and they called it Varma. Not karma, Varma.
Oh, fucking hell, wow.
You know, it's 5 in the morning.
That's honking. That is shite battering.
It was just, that's so patter. And when I listened to him as well, like his commentary in the game, the best way I can describe it is when I used to watch the old North American League before the MLS, they used to get guys and just like the baseball commentator or something, we just fling him over to the soccer, right? Like let him talk about kickball. That's what he says. Jerry McCulloch sounds like one of the old American baseball guy trying to describe football, putting on a Scottish accent. That's why. And that does my head in. There's plenty, but that's the one that came up recently. And I just groan when you talk.
Liam, you have took the vibe of the Celtic clinic and you've ran with it, mate. I think that's exactly what I was looking for, that type answer. Steve-O, you know, I pitched it in the WhatsApp group a wee bit early. It just occurred to me, right? I was on my walk to the shop for the vodka and dragon.
The cans, for the cans.
Paw Patrol had me busted in the opening credits, and I'll still never know how he went, get the vodkas poured as well as the dragon soup. I'm like, what did you bought that in the shop? That's mental. I'm like, Paw Patrol is one of my dogs actually worked out how to type. Like, is that what's happening here? But anyway, Steve-O, you know the format. You're not a dafty. I'm going to come to you next. Come on, speak to the clinic. It's a safe space, mate. It's okay. No one judges in the Celtic clinic.
Apart from everybody. No, right. I'm going to throw it out here. I'm similar to yourself, right? We don't care if we win, lose, or draw. We fucking do, right?
That's good.
Right, I'm sorry. Folk are going to hate me, but there's nothing wrong with wanting to win.
I care if we lose or draw.
And listen, it comes for a yesteryear when it was a more simpler time, and it was, you know, it was simply about just loving your club. And listen, we love our club, and I love our club, and it's you know, I can't express how much I love the club and want them to succeed. But I do care if we lose. And I fucking care if we draw and all. Right? I'm having none of that.
There's
no other way of putting it. It's that simple. See if you don't care if you're getting scudded every single week. There's something wrong with you.
You've just made the lyrics literal.
Look at the top. I fucking know about getting scudded. Right? I know about watching absolute dog shit.
But that's good. That's good. I want to touch on a few of the viewers' comments, but Steve, that's thinking outside the box, and you're absolutely spot on. Take those lyrics literal, and they're utter bullshit. Fitzy comes in. He says, "I've watched how they sold the jerseys at least 55 times. Good spin. I like that." We've got another one. CFC 1888 hates when Jerry McCulloch keeps asking a new signing how good it feels to sign for Celtic again. We've got a couple more, I'm sure. Cal Max, that I like to visualize the game and can do that only by heading. Who is on the ball? Didn't really get that. There's another one. He says Boyd commentating on TV.
He's terrible.
There's another one. There's a few coming in. This is good. I knew this would go nuts. 2 seconds. Sorry, I feel under pressure all of a sudden. Is there any more? Is there any more? Well, Kaiser's bound to have. I only support Celtic. I think people have a second team are just looking for somewhere to hide when we get beaten. That's true. Mr. We Red, though. Oh, this will start a reaction. Peter Grant is the archetypical. Oh, someone say that for me. Steve will read that word. Archetypal. Like,
I fucking know what he's talking about.
archetypal stereotypical, I think he means. Stereotypical Celtic gets my goat. Used to abuse the pointer from the main stand. The boys next to me eventually told me his father sat along. I used to abuse him from the main stand, and the boys next to me eventually told me his father sat along from me. So you're slagging Peter Grant, and his dad's just sitting on. That is what the clinic's about. And Mr. Reed, no one else will know about this, so don't you worry. Phil McGinley's coming in, and he says his favourite Celtic manager and era supporting Celtic is Brendan Rodgers. He's pressing it. He's pressing it.
Gucci belt.
Ryan McGinley's got one, and he hates being called.
That's one.
He hates being called entitled and spoilt because I've been brought up in a dominant part of Celtic's history and expect us to win almost all the time. It's called a winning mentality. I know what you mean.
I like that. Do you know, I like that, and I see that, and it's one thing that I hate, and it's great because obviously now folk can put faces to comments, right? But how many times do you see somebody and they've maybe just got, like, say it's a Celtic badge as their avatar on Twitter, and they're saying, oh, this is shite, and folk will say, you're on the title, fucker, blah, blah, blah. The guy could be like 65, do you know what I mean? And he's seen hundreds of Celtic incarnations. There's just this assumption that if you want to see Celtic win, do good, that you're either incredibly young or you're completely fickle and stupid. And I hate that. I hate that also.
I think Ryan, see if I was Ryan's age, I don't know what age Ryan is, but I'm going to guess early to mid-20s, right? He's got the baby face, do you know what I mean? I used to have that once upon a time. But I definitely think there's another side to it. I'll give you another confession, guys. Rich, I'll come to you next again, mate, right? But here's another confession. I think Celtic Twitter thinks Celtic's success began in 2016. I think they think that's the benchmark. I think they think trebles are the norm, and anything below that's not acceptable. And I'm not also aware, whilst there's always a winning mentality, I also don't think they've ever experienced the pain, sustained pain, by the way, not just losing a COVID season. I mean, like, my primary school was hell. 3 out of 60. See the two primary school classes, right? 3 of us supported Celtic. Say 30, but 35 were boys, 25 were girls, or 30. Just say 35. 3 were Celtic fans, 27 Rangers fans. 5 years of my primary school life, them dominating, them killing us. And I think if you think football started in 2016 when Brendan Rodgers started waving a scarf and that's the norm, well, I don't quite subscribe to that. That would be a pet hate of mine. Richie, give us another one. This is good. This is good for the sober cleansing, guys.
Aye, this is good. Bloody aye, I've got a ton of things, and I've probably voiced them all at some point.
Get it all out.
I will.
14 loves succulent lamb. Hey,
I'll
Kevin,
start.
safe space, mate. It's a safe space.
I'll try and start easy. I hate the fucking diddly D music that the players run out the tunnel.
What do you mean, like?
It's like fucking George Formby playing it, innit? But it's like George Formby playing it. It's like something off a Brighton Pier for 1923. That needs updated. Give us a grunge version, maybe. Maybe a grunge version. But we missed a trick with Coolio. With Coolio at Celtic Park.
Coming living in America. Get the fuck, come on.
Not quite, but I get tradition, but that music, it's not. It doesn't get the blood flowing.
Well, you try to see the way here. Live in quarantine.
Hey, girls. Hey, boys. Superstar DJs. Here we go.
At least jazz it up a wee bit. Make it a bit modern. It doesn't get the blood going.
I disagree, man. I disagree. I think when I hear like with a 4-leaf clover on my breast. I'm like, no, I'm having it, man. Do you know what I mean? And it makes me feel better about, maybe a wee bit of, weight I've put on since my 30s. So what can you do? Look, Ryan McGinley's coming back in. We've got a celebrity viewer, guys. And he's saying, swap the Celtic song with Welcome to the Jungle. Now, this is weird. And that is a confession, because Welcome to the Jungle came on my Spotify like 3 days ago. And it's so weird. I thought, imagine that playing at Celtic Park. And I know that sounds like I'm just trying to agree with Ryan for the sake of it. It's not the case. I don't do that. Genuinely, it was about 3-4 days ago. What day did I go to work? Thursday. The Friday. Friday I was in the office. That's when I was listening, and it just came on random. I thought, Liam, imagine with the disco lights, that intro to Welcome to the Jungle. And it brings back that notoriety of
rock and roll
the
football,
Jungle, which was back in the day. And people love harking back to the old days and would say, oh, fucking Green Brigade, that's nothing like the Jungle, yada, yada. Well, let's just marry them together. And let's have the Green Brigade singing about the Jungle. Nobody can complain then. And I think that song does have that sort of, it's got that attitude to it. I like that point. And genuinely, when it came on, I thought, there's marketing value in that. I didn't think about it though, playing over the PA at the beginning of every game. I thought, Liam, an advertising campaign for like the next kit. Nice. I thought if you paid for the copyrights for that tune playing Welcome to the Jungle, and it being a big like 3-minute trailer with the new hoops or the new away kit, whatever it may be, I mean that would fly, wouldn't it?
Mate, I did some work with the Toronto Blue Jays quite a few years ago, and we had Slash come. Toronto Blue Jays baseball team in Toronto, right? They play at the Skydome. They were world champions at the time. And they invited the Trailer Park Boys to throw out the first pitch, and they had Slash on guitar playing the national anthem. And also he played a couple of bars for Welcome to the Jungle. All that stuff's accessible. You just got to think big and throw it out there. Imagine Slash standing in the centre circle with the guitar playing Welcome to the Jungle. Place would go ballistic. And also, it'd be in every single YouTube, TikTok thing. The marketing potential for something like that is massive. And it's all available. We got so many celebrity Celtic fans. You can get
Ryan's just ruined it, though. Liam.
What?
Ryan was doing so well, Liam. He comes up with Guns N' Roses. And then Welcome to Paradise by Ryan! Ryan, you were like, you had the veterans on board, mate. You had the bus rock star, an actual resident rock star, completely on board, and then you bring up a pop group.
Good song, but lyrically incorrect.
Welcome to the Jungle would be great fun, mate. Come on. I think there's ways they could just clip the song as well. Don't get me wrong. It's funny. Have you ever noticed this, Steve-O? Right? I mean, I know. Listen, see when I listen to Whitney Houston, for example, 80s power ballads, Madonna, I feel a wee bit like, I want to slag off Protestants, right? I'm fucking raging right now. They've got to be the only club, right, in the world that I've had to have
a strange reaction. I don't know if I approve of that.
No, a power ballad for the 80s by Tina Turner clipped so that the intro isn't played. So it just starts with the chorus because they can't help themselves but sing bigotry in between verses. Like, I've never known a power ballad for the 80s by a female song. A female singer. How does that make you think of all that nonsense? So even the powers that be at Ibrox have had to go, just start that song for the chorus, simply the best. They can't play an intro to a power ballad for the 80s because they riot. They fucking go mental, by the way. I swear to God. And see if you play Gabrielle later. See if you play Gabrielle. I swear, you want to see them.
It's strange, as you say. It's like, how can people, whether it's Rangers fans throwing out hate from their side or Celtic fans throwing out hate to the other side, how can people get that into their head from the off? And
it's power ballad, mate.
Nothing says visceral hate like Tina Turner.
Hey, Russell.
It's unacceptable. It's no.
Hey, can I throw?
Go on.
Let me throw out two.
You'd rather we
quick
didn't have it at all, but it's strange that they think that's strange.
Hey, here's a couple of wee Sunday confessions. One, my wife right now, I got caught by my roommate once when he came in the house, and I was shagging my wife, and I had her wearing a Celtic strap. I got caught. Who hasn't done that, right?
This is quickly went off the rails. This is went into fucking madness territory.
And then another time,
there's an argument there. Yeah, everyone's missed his blown the hoops at some point, no? I agree, mate. Like, definitely. I still want that shirt back, by the way. Not you, but I mean, like,
anyway,
you know.
And then the other one, early 80s, I was dating this lassie for Ayrshire, living in Toronto, and she asked me if I could take her wee cousin to Wonderland. And their Wonderland is like, it's like Canada's Disneyland, but it's like Scooby-Doo and Flintstones and all that. At the time, anyways, I had this wee prick with me the whole time. I fucking hated him. I wanted to fling him off the Ferris wheel at one point because he annoyed me the entire day. And that wee boy grew up to be Lee McCulloch.
No way!
Before I had a chance to throw that fucker off the Ferris wheel, didn't he do it?
Was his elbows are right outside the car. I bet they were like, look, you need to keep your but you know when you sit in the thing, you need to keep your arms inside the car. But big, elbows McCulloch, he'd had outside it.
He was 12 at the time. 12.
Here's another one. Here's another one, Richie.
Yeah.
Here's another one.
Yeah, another one. Liam's not going to like this one, but I had an issue with Scott Brown for years. I know, and I did.
Here we go.
Can't take anything away for the guy's numbers. I mean, you look at it, he does on paper seem like a legend, but I'm with Liam. I think he held back our midfield. I think he stopped better players playing in that position. And he was the first to jump ship when everything went sideways as well.
Getting dark.
That's sinister.
I know it's not so popular because the guy done as a turn. The guy done as a turn, but I thought in Europe it was hard.
Steve-O.
Is that me banned now?
It's just Steve-O. We're just going to pass the parcel a wee bit here. Steve-O, here's another confession, mate.
I mean, thank you. I mean, how juicy does it need to be? Because some of them are just.
No, just your honest confession. It's a safe space. I've told you, we're in the Celtic clinic.
The Bumblebee taps are shiter.
He's banned.
Listen, I've got the 95, right? And it's nostalgic. Aye. and it's nostalgic. But I'll throw it out. I preferred the night version that was actually Bumblebee.
Yeah, me too. No, I prefer the night version as well.
Right. So I'm talking about the original. It's actually
you said the Bumblebee kit as in like I thought you meant the design, mate, and I'm like
no, I mean that's the original. The Bumblebee kit original is a shiter.
No, it's not a shiter.
I've got it. I still wear it, but come on. It's not...
I think the Nike one was better, by the way. I agree.
The Nike one is better. Nike one's better.
I agree with that.
There you go.
Oh fuck! It's back to me.
You were like,
I thought you meant. I was like the Bumblebee design is unbelievable. Oh God! Right, think, boys. Think. Okay, I've got one, and it's the honest truth. I was 50-50 when Henrik Larsson took a penalty.
I don't know about that. That's wild.
How many did he miss?
I never fancied him at a penalty either.
I was always.
I know he scored a few, but he missed
I felt more confident Henrik with a free kick than I did a penalty. I honestly thought with a penalty, man, he's going to miss.
And he always went to the keeper's right.
I think it all just started meaning too much to him. I just always got a bad feeling, and he missed, by the way, a few important ones. Don't know if you remember Valencia, Boa Vista. Really cost us as well. I know he obviously recovered with a toe punt, right? Which is only as Henrik would do. But he missed against Boa Vista UEFA Cup semi. and he missed Valencia that UEFA Cup third round after the Champions League. Remember, we played them off the party.
I'm just going to throw one in real quick. I've thought of it, right? As a person, I did not like Martin O'Neill. Can't stick him.
Right, you are pushing it. You are
Just
fucking
get him.
what?
And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you
Why?
why. See up here, I've got my Science of Ill program, right? See, I used to work in a hotel where the team used to come, and every single person and player that I approached and spoke to was absolutely brand new, apart from Martin O'Neill, who was a complete waiting. He did not want to speak.
What do you want? Well, you want to waste time.
He did not want to speak to anybody.
Yeah, because he's Martin O'Neill.
And what?
Oh, come on. Oh, my God. Oh, no. No. No.
You started this. You started this.
No. It's a safe space, Steve-O. This conversation goes no further.
Listen, I love what Martin O'Neill brought, and I love that era and about time, but I'm talking about on a basic level. As a person, I didn't like him. I couldn't connect him. I couldn't connect him.
He's like, what the fuck you need to connect with me for? I've got 21
No,
players.
I'm not talking about that one meeting. I'm just talking about when I watched him in interviews and post-match. I just didn't connect with him.
I find that is fascinating, and not, by the way, a critique of you. That I just find that fascinating because I found him the most I thought
it was animated. It was very animated, but I always found it in this kind of like overly animated, almost at times whiny way that I couldn't connect with.
That is good. Mate, this is what the clinic is for. Steve-O, you feel cleansed now you've said that. Liam, gaze another one.
Right.
Look here, there's a good one. There's a good one.
That is true. That's true. That
the Ronnie Roller was a bit of a redneck, eh? It was. Yes. Yeah, we won the league over Aberdeen by 3 points. Yes. Derek McInnes is in charge. Yes. Get away.
I'll agree with Richie about the Scott Brown thing. I wasn't a big fan of Scott Brown either. There was something about what I hated was when we were under pressure, he would fire a chest-high pass. It was just some young boy or brand new to the team, and then asking him to control it. He did that thing where he just didn't look where he was passing the ball like it was some sort of training exercise, and that used to drive me crazy. The amount of times the balls would get intercepted or somebody would get a chest-high tackle trying to control the thing. It's been a couple of Celtic players, I confess, that I didn't like and all that, but I'm
going to give you one more. I'm going to give one more that really upsets the apple cart. Martin O'Neill was better in Europe than Brendan Rodgers and Ange Postecoglou.
But he was, though.
But not just back. I would, with this squad we've currently got, going into the Champions League next year, I would rather have Neil Lennon in the Champions League than Ange. Definitely. Points, not plaudits. He would find a way to win with that team in the Champions League.
Listen, we can't have a bad mouth the achievements and what happened with Neil. That's that was great times, some of the best times for us.
Shell's following you, Steve-O. Celtic. She's following. No, that was fine. But this is what it's about. We're all getting off our chest. But I know it's controversial. But I do believe, Richie, this Celtic squad, if we go in September, you tell me Neil Lennon's in charge for the 6 Champions League games and just domestically, I would take it.
We would be on our edge of our seats for an entirely
different
different reason.
Bullshit, mate.
I know, but we'd be on our edge of our seats for an entirely different reason. If it was Lennon's team, it would be the Barcelona backs to the wall.
No, but even with this group of players, I think even with Lennon would find a way.
But that's the style he would play. It'd be the same as the Barcelona game, the backs to the wall.
So you would see, maybe you would see Ivata and McGregor sitting, and maybe you would see, do you know what I mean? Like it being, oh no, those players are all there. They're all there to
The
be
players are
utilised.
there.
I think in Europe, Neil Lennon. The one thing I always think as well about, see, when we did fuck it in that, his final season, remember he said the 5 guys, he was like, they didn't want to be here. I think that the board were in a no-win situation, right? Because if we sold our best players, they'd say, selling your best players, like, you cost us the 10. Keeping players who don't want to be there, you cost us the 10, right? And I do kind of sympathise with that. But the one thing I will say is, Neil Lennon definitely did kind of roadmap. He was like, look, there's 5 guys who don't want to be here. And I think that was proven to be true. You look at his European record outside that, I think we got battered off. It was quite rock and roll, to be fair. But I remember we played Spartak Moscow at home, Liam, right?
Aye.
And we had to win. We had to win. See, now, I wouldn't bet on Celtic if they had to win against Spartak Moscow to qualify for a group. Would you actually back Celtic to do that? Would you? Fuck.
No.
You wouldn't. You would go, wow, what a result. See, then, I remember watching it going, this is a wee side note. Me and my friend Martin Cooper had tickets to go see the Human League. They were free tickets, right?
Is this the 80s? Is this in the 1980s?
I know, but we did. And I was like, do you know what? I was like, do you know what? Well, the game's all, I was like, some things are more important. So we stayed in the Boozer where we were in Glasgow. I can't remember what its name was. And we watched it. And I was confident the whole way through. No batter Spartak Moscow at home. I don't think you get that now, Liam. Like, you don't get that confidence. Neil Lennon was doing that again. Don't talk about spending. He was doing it with 300 grand Chris Commons, 2 million Gary Hoopers,
What I didn't like last year, and I got to confess what I hated about Ange, not hated, hate's a strong word, what I didn't like was when we'd have some of these games like Real Betis and all that, when we were in a conference, the Champions, like UEFA, whatever it was, right? And he was wanting us to get excited about that. Oh, we played really, really well for like 55 minutes and 65 minutes. And then when we made the 3 subs, the doors came off and that. And it was already, we'd resigned at the fact that, if we can show up and can play 60, 65 minutes against this team, we've shown our value. That drove mental. That just was not the Celtic I wanted to see. And so when that part is when it was at Ange, I thought that was a major fault, and I'm hoping
I get that
incremental wins of getting better. No, I want to see us beating Real Madrid. I think if we'd have took our chances, we could have done that. So I'm not happy with just like, but we've got up to be
interesting things that annoy you the way.
And
what about this one, Steve-O?
No.
Strachan got under Charles Smith's skin with these smart-ass interviews. Now, the thing is, history, Steve-O, for a bit of context, before I come to my contributors, because I like to do this, Strachan's record's actually fucking phenomenal.
It's really good,
considering it was seen as a downsizing period. 2 last 16s in the Champions League, right? But the insane thing is, I don't think he wanted to Celtic. I think he talks higher about Celtic now than he ever did as manager. And that was a fickle side to his character that I think he didn't need to actually portray. And I agree with Charles Smith on this. Strachan got under my skin with these smart-ass interviews as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was like some things at times it was funny, and then as it kind of went on, it wore down a wee bit. And we talk about Ange to an extent. You can almost kind of say that a wee bit about what's going on with Ange, like the sharp tongue. So if it keeps continuing, it might get to the point where folk are saying the exact same thing. I'm not saying that myself right now, but what I'm saying is,
Steve, we've speculated on this. Is he being almost a wee bit too clever? Like his battles with the media, but he's forgetting he's got to keep the fans informed as well, and he's maybe too focused on playing games in the media. I think that's a brilliant comparison.
That's the thing, and like, Strachan, I think, I don't know if he kind of warmed to Celtic later, because when you're in that bubble and all the shit that goes with it,
it's gone.
That it brings you down. It brings you down, and you don't like it.
And you've done Middlesbrough, and you've tried to manage Scotland. suddenly Celtic looks fucking like the rosiest part of your career
Yeah,
ever.
absolutely.
I think it is. Right, Celtic. It's good to have you on, Shell. Liam, she hated Aidan McGeady. The clinic's getting lively, by the way. The clinic. This is good, though, because we're all cleansing our souls, Liam. And we're all about that in the bus. Honesty is the best policy. Did you hate Aidan McGeady like Shell did?
I could see why there was a dislike for Aidan McGeady.
I'm
You know, it's
asking you
like,
a question, though, you bastard. Hey, big politician answer.
I did. There was times he drove me absolutely mental. You know, it's like just beat the player once. I thought he was one of these players that thought he was better than the club. I really thought he did. He had an arrogance to him that I don't like to see in a Celtic player. I like a swagger, but arrogance is completely different. And I thought it was times where he could come across very, very arrogant in his decision making. You know, he was like ballooning him out the park at times, and
end product.
He end product, lots and lots of tricks. So sometimes
I disagree with that. I think I have plenty of assists, mate. I think I have plenty of assists. I think he's a prick because he just is a moaner, he's a whiner. Scott Brown gets love for it. Aidan McGeady doesn't. I think history will be very kind to him. I think see when it came to carrying the ball in Europe and that, McGeady was as good as Nakamura at that, honestly. And he was 20 years old, 21. See the level, the weight of responsibility we chucked at him because he was introduced to the team so young. See, once you've been a regular in the Celtic team for 3 years, folk have forgotten he's 20 years old. Everyone just goes, well, you've been in the team 3 years, so you're just getting like, fuck off. I think McGeady was.
I was on the fence.
Way better than he was given credit for.
He had a moany face. This is a moany face. Do you remember when somebody put him up, they took an image of some lassie for the Norwegian women's team, and she was an absolute doppelganger for Aidan McGeady, and he used to post them side by side. It was like, oh God, she looks exactly like him, you know.
Right, let's go to another one. Richie, French Eddie was a prick, says James Brown.
Well, he's French. Most French are, right?
No.
We don't do generalisation.
No, I am kidding with that. But he was a bit of a prick towards the end. You know,
do you think though?
He down tools.
There was two French strikers we had. One down tools essentially on the training ground. One down tools on the pitch. But effectively, it's the same thing. One's fondly looked at as a hero. One's looked at as a villain.
Who are we talking about here? Who's the other one?
Dembele and Edward.
Dembele.
Do you want me to spell it in alphabet? Come on. Surely you know what I'm talking about there. Thierry Henry. Vichy, come on.
Yeah, okay. No, I thought maybe you were talking about Cham. No, it was. No, sorry. But I think Julian had a bit of an influence on the Cham and Eddie situation with him kind of down in tools. Me and Liam spoke about this before about him not making the step up and being a bit out of joint. Bit of a troublemaker, but Eddie definitely down tools towards the end of it. He definitely down tools at the end.
After that one.
What are you laughing at?
I changed over and somebody wrote brown brogues are versatile, useful shoes. I laughed at that more than I should have.
Good chit-chat. Only tells the truth. But I think it's been a very healthy thing for the bus tonight. And everyone, the viewers, we've all confessed to a few things that maybe normally wouldn't get off our chest. And don't you worry, guys. On the Sunday Sesh, the next Sunday Sesh, where we completely contrast what the whole point of a Sunday Sesh is, which is meant to be, you know what I mean, a bit mad. We then turn into a therapy clinic at the end. You know, it's like going in an AA meeting with a bottle of tonic, right? That's kind of how we're doing it, right?
That escalated quickly.
But it has been brilliant to hear everyone's Celtic confessions. And by the way, we aren't done with this segment. It will come back in the weeks to come. But Richie, have you enjoyed your debut on the Boise Bass?
I've had a great time. I've meandered and forgot what I was talking about, but yeah, I've enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
No, you're welcome, Steve-O. You become part of the furniture, big man. You enjoying it?
Absolutely. I was a good laugh. I like that. It's nice to throw out some bold statements and take everything that comes up.
Or favour, mate, without fear of favour. You know, strong opinion. See, if you don't have a strong opinion, Liam, are you really a Celtic fan? Or are you trying to get likes? You trying to get likes? What's the point? You trying to get likes?
I don't care if nobody cares, mate. Nobody fucking cares.
Nobody fucking cares. And on that note, we will leave you with one guy who definitely nobody cared. Chris Sutton.
When you've all that stuff at the start, you know, they won't be playing Tina Turner on the coach on the way home, will they?
Some of his comments about me deliberately trying to cause controversy. Well, I work in the media now, and you've got someone sitting there next to you who's an embarrassment to the media profession. He's an apologist. He's a charlatan. He's a Rangers puppet. He's a cheerleader. That's what he is.